The galaxy is at war, a war in the stars, and they're going to have to trek across it to a world of aliens and dunes. Sci-fi is one of the most popular genres out there, and it's up there with fantasy as being the premier expression of speculative fiction. Those genres which take us away from the real world and bring us somewhere entirely new, whether it's into a world of dragons and wizards or of aliens and distant worlds. But sci-fi is unique in that it is a platform for enterprising authors to put forth their ideas about the future of our species and the technologies we create that have so defined our modern life. The internet would have been inconceivable to someone living 100 years ago, and so imagine what might exist in 100 years from now that'd be inconceivable to us. It's very hard, and you can't do it, but I can. And so I can tell you that the future, and therefore sci-fi, is about laser guns, space battles, and hot aliens. Unfortunately for us, sci-fi requires some real setting up. So that's what we're going to have to start with. So we're going to put ourselves 500 years into the future, a point at which I'm sure I can accurately predict exactly where humanity is going to be. Even though I don't actually need to be right in my prediction for my story to be good, I am going to defend this prediction to the death and scream at anybody who disagrees with it, even though none of us will live to see the reality of it. But as you may know, relatability is always the most important thing to remember when writing sci-fi, and so nothing is going to have actually really changed in these 500 years. There will just be more spaceships and hot aliens, the only things likely to be different about our society in an equivalent span of time that took us from the Renaissance to the modern day. But we do probably have to figure out what's going on Earth. I think the first thing we can establish is that this is our cool and epic sci-fi galaxy, and so Earth has shed its old name for something cooler and newer and never before seen, like Terra or Gaia. Or maybe we'll be vague and cool and just call it the home world. Why? In what world would it be easy or practical to collectively change the name of the planet that we all live on? Doesn't matter. Or maybe the super space dictator that rules over Earth changed it by decree. That totally means everyone would adopt that new language immediately, as all culture is dictated from the top down, of course. It's also important to remember that nothing about Earth's cultures will have changed either. Nothing about the ones we think are important, anyway. Maybe the borders have shifted somewhat, just to make our lives a little easier. Let's see. Rather than all that mess that the world's borders currently look like, we'll make some cleaner ones. We've now got the Federated Federal Federations of South America, the Free Democratic Democracy of Africa, the People's Civilian Citizens Republic of China and some other countries, the Russia, the European United Union of Unity, and America. Who has gone completely unchanged. But they do also own Canada's territory now, and I kind of forgot about Mexico, so I guess they're still independent too. I hope you'll all agree this is the most accurate possible projection of our world's borders in 500 years. But this might prompt us to ask ourselves, how would international relations change in a time of mass space exploration? Is it an initiative of large spacefaring companies that, in essence, become their own sovereign states, with territory only in the stars? Do the countries of Earth continue their terrestrial struggles but unite for the purposes of the great adventure out into the cosmos? Or are different human colonies claimed to be the sovereign territory of certain nations which, when they fight on Earth, fight across the stars as well? These questions are making my head hurt, so we're going to take the easy option. There is a one world government. Its capital, of course, is New York City, which, as you might remember from the Dystopias video, is a city nobody ever writes about and that nobody is sick of seeing in everything. But every time that the world government convenes, they do so near the Cyber Statue of Liberty. A good pro tip for sci-fi, actually, is that if you add the prefix cyber to something, you automatically make it futuristic and cooler. Cyber rifle, cyber tech, cyber bidet. Now, how does this one world government work? How does it manage the interests of all the world's disparate cultures and billions upon billions of people? Perfectly and without any issues, of course. If we know anything from the last 2,000 years of human history, it's that getting everybody to agree on one thing, in this case a system of government, is really easy, especially when that agreement would involve powerful people giving up that power. It's so easy that we don't need to make how this came about interesting or make sense, or even explain it in the first place. There could be some other things that have changed too. I mean, 500 years is enough time for like one or two more important cities to crop up, which of course we'll call Cyber City and Space Town respectively. It's not like 500 years is twice as long as the United States has existed and might be enough time to fundamentally reshape almost every city and culture that we know of. It's very important to remember that. Anyway, that's enough about Earth. We might blow it up as set dressing anyway, so that might have all been unimportant. Now comes for the real important stuff: foreign worlds. Starting with the former, as we all know, every planet NASA has detected and investigated thus far with those space telescopes of theirs has basically been like one of Earth's biomes, but planet-wide. We found countless ice worlds, forest worlds, desert worlds, and so on, all with a completely pre-built, breathable atmosphere with an Earth-like nitrogen-oxygen composition. In fact, most planets our characters could land on and step out onto without even putting on a spacesuit. But there might be some that they will need to, just so we can show off our totally original spacesuit design that we'll put on the book cover. Now, we are 500 years into the future, and so we're decreeing that'll be enough time for there to be more than one colonized planet, but less than 500. Somewhere in that range is where the total will be, but we'll never really clarify, so that if I forgot a monobiome that I want to make into a world type to show off, I can throw it in there without it being too big of an issue. But we'll certainly have the classics. There's Frostia, the ice world where there are Yeti aliens that kill and eat you. Greenland, the jungle world where there are dinosaur aliens that kill and eat you, and Sandland where there are worm-like aliens that kill and eat you. Really, the core thing to bear in mind here is that the ecology of every planet you make should be has giant aliens that can kill and eat you. Remember that ecosystems do not generally require overwhelmingly more small-scale organisms, from bacteria and plants to small herbivores, to function correctly. An ecosystem full of apex predators and literally nothing else is very realistic. But if you're going to have these planets, you need to know how people got there. Space is kind of big. It'd probably take like a whole year to go between planets across the galaxy without light speed. So we're presented with a dilemma, to which sci-fi generally has these two answers. Either one, long-term space travel remains below light speed, and so crew members are cryogenically frozen or otherwise preserved in stasis until they arrive years if not decades later, or you develop some sort of wormhole or faster than light travel to shorten those distances. You know, the stasis one has always been interesting to me. I've always wondered about a scenario where a crew frozen in stasis remains in stasis throughout their journey, only to find their destination is already occupied by colonists, because in the intervening time during their travel, a true faster-than-light method was devised, making their going into stasis and basically pausing their lives for decades unnecessary. The stasis option remains so interesting because to do so is practically to choose to die and be reborn in a new era. All that you knew at home will be unfathomably different when you awake, and yet even your ability to hear about those changes would be delayed by as many years as it took you to travel there unconsciously. You would be truly adrift in the universe and in a way disconnected from time as you used to understand it. But the stasis one is boring and sucks because then you don't get to have a cool hyperspace or wormhole section where the crew either has to get strapped into their chairs and ride the lightning, and you need to worry about time stuff with stasis anyway. Time stuff makes my head hurt. So, faster than light travel it is. Innovative as we always are, we're going to call it the Super Hyper Omega Really Fast Upsilon Delta Drive, which allows you to travel at 50 times the speed of light. We're going to say that figure, but never really keep it in mind, nor measure, because even at that speed, traveling across the Milky Way would still take about 2,000 years. The important thing is that it's as fast or slow as we need it to be. That's to say, it's always quick enough for our heroes to get where they need to be, but too slow for the bad guys to ever actually catch up to them. Our protagonists just have a super hyper omega really fast Upsilon Delta Drive Mark II after all, so theirs is just that little bit faster. But speaking of our bad guys, we need weapons to fight them with. Sci-fi is often defined by weapons technology, as these stories often involve wars and conflicts, and estimations as to what those might look like in the far future. There are only 2.5 possibilities for weapons technology in the future, though. The first is the Starfield option, where there are still a lot of basically conventional guns, but they are sci-fi because we stick a bunch of random pieces of plastic onto them that do something. Make them sci-fi or, capacitors and enhancers and energizers and stuff. Those words mean things in this context. The other option is lasers. Lasers are nice because we can color code them based on your morality. Good guys use blue lasers and bad guys use red lasers. Why? The good guys mine blue crystals and the bad guys mine red ones. Or maybe we'll introduce an equally color-coded magic system that shows your morality when you shoot a laser gun and color shifts it accordingly. Then, of course, comes the idea of the laser sword. We do need to have melee weapons for one simple reason. Our characters can only deliver one-liners to each other when clashing with their melee weapons. If they're shooting at each other, they'd be too far away to hear one another. Now, of course, in reality, the reason ranged weapons have completely overtaken melee weapons is because weapons technology has surpassed armor technology in destructiveness and cost efficiency. I mean, just watch a video of an FPV drone that costs like $1,000 crashing into a multi-million-dollar tank for proof of that. But the idiots in real life just haven't figured out how to make this super badass personal protection I'm predicting we'll have then. The warp field shield. With the warp field shield, any high velocity object is simply caught and stopped, while lower velocity ones can pass through because it would be too useful otherwise. No, I haven't seen Dune. Why do you ask? But anyway, by doing this, we can ensure that melee reigns supreme. And melee will be very important when it comes time to rip and tear against our aliens. You basically can't have sci-fi without aliens. You might be intimidated when trying to come up with aliens of your own, though, because there are so many options for where you could go with that concept. Aliens could be anything, from perhaps starkly similar to humans to processing the world in entirely different ways, or even being based on different elements like silicon. But thankfully, I'm here to smooth out those wrinkles in your brain and tell you that there are only 3 types of alien, really. Bug, blue person, glupshido. Naturally, since we're writing the best sci-fi galaxy, I'm going to have one of each of these so you can learn from the master. But we'll use this handy map here so you can see our complex borders as we set them up. Bugs are great for when you just want an alien to massacre en masse. They're usually a hive mind. Now, what a hive mind means is that basically they will all single-mindedly try to kill and eat every single human they come across, just like our complex ecosystems from earlier. They have no sense of self-preservation and will run headlong into gun lines and artillery bombardments because they're so brainless. How do they ever manage to leave their homeworld if they're that incompetent? Bug magic. The important thing to remember with bug aliens is that the hive mind is smart enough to get the bugs across space to be gunned down by our protagonists and their marines. It's always some kind of marine. But dumb enough to, once they arrive, do everything in their power to actually lose every engagement they take part in. Or to get kinda close to winning, only to finally give up when only the protagonist, protected by the warp field shield modified by Plautus Armoria himself, remains. Our bugs will be called the arthropods, and they look like giant ants, but they shoot lasers out of their mouths. But next is the blue people aliens. Now, blue people don't actually have to be blue, but they are called such because they are your excuse to put in hot people with inhuman features. They might even be green if you're getting adventurous, or maybe purple. They exist to be hot people, but exotic. That's pretty much it. Our example for these are going to be the Bloomans of planet Blurth. Or as they would say it in their vernacular, I'm going to use in all of their dialogue, written or otherwise, Blay blar blabloomans blove planet Blurth. That will never get annoying. They have a deep and detailed lore about how much they love humans and want to be in relationships with them, which makes complete sense culturally, Trust me, bro. Finally, our glup shittos. This is the category everything that isn't a hot person or a bug falls into. It's in this category where we risk getting dangerously close to creativity, and so we need to be careful not to stray. The important thing to remember about a glup shitto is that you can basically just pick an animal, exaggerate its features, or just try to draw one while drunk, and then stick with whatever design that leads to. This creates memorable characters, the best in your series, like Star Wars' I'm a Gun Die, who did, unfortunately, die. Honestly, referring to Star Wars character names is a great start for naming your glup shittos, like Savage Opress or Worm Loathsome. There are a few good uses for glup shittos, however. The first and most obvious is to be the party dog. Have an alien that can't speak English and looks furry? Dog. More points if it's small or meant to be childlike, because then all the marketable plushies you sell will make up for how little they contribute to the story. People will even put bumper stickers of this character on their cars even though they won't have even read your book or watched your movie, and if that's not winning, nothing is. The next glup shitto is the token. This character exists so that the audience won't say, "Man, it seems like the author just wants to watch his protagonist kill a bunch of aliens thoughtlessly." So having a token glup shitto follow them around and help out can alleviate such concerns. It's even better if you code this token alien after some real-life group. That can have no possible downsides. And the final use is as a sentient enemy. Sometimes you don't want to slaughter bugs, but other sentient beings, and that's what a glup shitto is truly meant for. Make them ugly and nobody will care how sentient they are when they're massacred wholesale. As we must always remember, you're predicting humanity's actions. You're good, therefore humanity is good. Therefore humanity's actions are good, and therefore glassing that alien orphanage was ethically correct. So for our world, we're going to have some glup shittos called the Batuglians from Batuglia. But with that, I think we've covered the basics of writing a perfect sci-fi galaxy for your next project. I don't think it's possible to advance beyond the examples I laid out today, but you're more than welcome to try. Anyway, if this sounds like a place you want to be, we have a Discord if you want to hang out with my editor and I, and a Patreon if you're crazy enough to want it, where we post all our videos early. As we close out, I'd like to thank those patrons of ours: Sani, Isaac Parrott, Raymond, Don, Sadako, Cavalier, Sazabi, Shieldmaid Fenya, and Michelle of the Knights of the Inner Circle. Vion and Jody on Void are Knights, and Greer, TOW, Craig, Victoria Lauren, Noah, Saint Sir Nicholas, and Joush are loyal squires. And remember, the most important lesson of sci-fi is that technology never ever, for any reason ever, has any downsides whatsoever, and all advancement is good all the time, always.